Hello class. In this module we are going to talk about different topics. So the first one is file. Then we will talk about the size of file. Then we'll talk about path of file. We'll talk about type of file. Then next we'll talk about how can we create file through C++. Okay, so let me talk about each and individual topic. First of all, what is file is? So file means we are creating any file through any software. For example, I want to create my resume. Okay, so if I'm Windows user, I will open a Microsoft Office Word document. Okay, and I'll write something and will save it with docx extension, and that is my file, that is my resume file. Okay, so what is file is? So file is collection of data. Now, while I have created resume, and if I have used docx file, if I have used a Word document, then the file will be having extension called .docx. But if I am creating any presentation, then my file will have, for example, it's my presentation 1, then it's a presentation 1.pptx file. So what should be the file extension? That is completely depends on what kind of file it is or what software you are using. I'm using a document software, then it will having a docx extension. If I'm using a presentation, to create a presentation, I'm using a ppt file of Microsoft Office, then it will having pptx extension and so on. Okay, so that is a file and file extension. Next is about size of file. Now, size of file is completely depend on how much data you are storing in it. So, if you are storing a single character, then its size will be a single byte. But if you store more data, then its size will be in a KB, that is a kilobytes, MB, megabytes, TB, GB, and so on. So the size will be depends on how much data you store in your file. Now, next is path of file. So path of file means where I am saving my file. If I'm saving, for example, if I have my C drive, my personal doc, directory, or we can say that folder, and in personal doc folder, I have saved my resume file. Okay, then the path of my file will be C drive, personal doc, resume.docx. So this is my directory, and within this directory I have saved this file, and C is my drive. Now generally nowadays people used to store their data on cloud, so that can be even on a OneDrive or in a Google Drive and so on. So wherever you are storing your data, you might having some directory structure, like I want to store my personal data, my educational data, and so on. So according a directory structure will be there. So that is called a path of file. Now next is a type of file. So in a type of file, generally binary and text file. There are two types of file identified. One is a binary and another is a text file. Text file means which is in a human readable format generally, and that is called a text file which we can read. But certain data files which we cannot read, then that is called a binary file. For example, image files or MP4 files, maybe binary files, okay, that are not in a human readable format. So that are called binary file. Now, other type of file on the base of how you are accessing it, and that is called sequential file and random access file. Now, look at here, the file is same. Okay, here the file is same, just how we are accessing it, on the base of that the file type is different. So if I'm accessing one by one in sequence records of my file, then that is called sequential file or sequential access file. But if I'm accessing my file like a first record I have accessed, then fifth record I have accessed, then that is called random access file. This is not file type, but this is type of access, how we are accessing the file. Okay, and that is on that base also we used to say that okay, this is sequential file, this is random access file, but it is not correct. File is the same, how we are accessing is different, and that's why we are saying that okay, this is sequential file or this is random access file. Let's say for example, I have written one story and I am reading it one by one, then that is called a sequential access. Okay, and suppose I have created a spreadsheet where I have stored students record. Now I am going to extend the student record who is on the first roll number, then I am going to access the student record who is on 10th number, then that is called a random access file. So I am not accessing in sequence, I am accessing it randomly, then that is called random access file. And next is we can create file in C++. How can we create a file in C++ program? That we'll discuss in next video. Thank you.